Thank you, Pavan, Ambassador Kapoor, Ambassador here, friends. It's a very great honor. I'll start with you. Thanks. It's a great honor to have Ambassador Kapoor here, and it comes at a genuinely propitious time. It's the 25th anniversary of India extending full diplomatic relations with Israel in 1992. It comes, of course, within days of Prime Minister Modi's historic visit, and it coincides with the JPPI publication of this important new book by Shalom, Wald and Ariel Kandel. In a way, this book is a reminder of the emphasis that Avinoam has pointed us to in the last few years, and that is the impact of globalization on Israel, the Jewish people, and the world. The ambassador is representing the enlightened, visionary leadership of Prime Minister Modi, who has made dramatic internal reforms, has redefined the relationship with Israel, and has deepened relations with the United States. The improved relationship with India is both a critical element of American and Israeli foreign policy. India is a country on the move. It is a major regional and now global power. And its rise is often overshadowed by the attention given to the aggressive rise of its neighbor China. And it's time that it stood in its own sunshine. India is part of the Asia-Pacific region, which is the most economically vibrant and fastest growing region in the world. Many Asian countries have adopted a form of authoritarian capitalism, which is anathema to the U.S. and Israeli models. And one of the things that, Mr. Ambassador, is so important is that your country has adopted a democratic free market model, and that makes it especially welcome. India is the second largest country in the world and one of the youngest. With 1.3 billion people, it has a median age of only 27, compared, for example, to 36 for China. In 20 years, India's population will exceed China's. It will become the most populous nation on earth. And your vast diaspora, Mr. Ambassador, stretches from Dubai and Singapore to the U.S. and Israel. And this gives India a much broader global perspective. But it's not only in sheer numbers that your dramatic ascension is marked. With the reforms that your Prime Minister has implemented, your highly talented and well-educated population, you are now the fastest growing country in the world at 7%. As Shlomo Wald and Ariel Kandel note, your presence in the Middle East is significantly increasing because of your energy needs. 2/3 of your energy is imported from the Middle East. And as a consequence, Middle Eastern trade represents twice as much trade as you do with the United States or even China. And I think that is not in any way entirely to Israel's disadvantage, because Arab oil producers, as Shlomo and Ariel said in their book, need you as much as you need them. India's rise has to be put into the context of a profound shift of power and influence in the world. This is genuinely a new template. Power is shifting from the West to the East, from the U.S. and its longtime European allies to Asia. The OECD recently estimated that by mid-century, India will move from 7% of global GDP to a stunning 18% of GDP. China will increase from 17 to 28%, while the U.S. will decline from 23 to 17%, and Europe will plummet from 17% now to only 9%. So this is a dramatic change, a titanic change in the whole global economic environment. That is why the Obama administration, recognizing this shift, talked about a pivot to Asia, dramatized by the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, and by a substantial upgrading of the US-India relationship. More on that shortly. What's critically important to understand is that India is no longer on the sidelines of global strategic affairs, watching others take the lead. India is taking a much more proactive role in Asia. You're modernizing and diversifying your assets, including the Strategic Forces Command. You're reaching out to Asian countries to compete with China's One Belt, One Road initiative. You're co-developing manufacturing hubs throughout Southeast Asia. You're supporting mega infrastructure programs like the Asia Highway Network. You're installing ocean surveillance equipment to protect your strategic assets. And you're increasing your security dialogue and military exercises with the U.S., Vietnam, Japan, and Australia. At the same time, you're seeking to improve Sino-Indian relations and not participate in any China containment policy, and that's wise. For nearly 4 decades, after Israel and India got their independence from Britain within months of each other, India and Israel were pointed in very different directions. India was a leader in the non-aligned movement that maintained close relations with the Arab world and the Soviet Union, and frankly was generally negative toward Israel. Israel, on the other hand, linked its future with the U.S. and with Europe. India in those early days was concerned with close relations with the Jewish state, in part because even today now, 15% of your population is Muslim, a stunning 180 million people, and this means the largest Muslim majority in the world and the second most populous Muslim population next to Indonesia. India voted against the UN partition plan and didn't recognize Israel's declaration of statehood. India voted against the admission to the UN of Israel and regularly supported anti-Israel relations. Well, this is really changing. And I think Ambassador Sofer's point is very important, because what the Prime Minister's visit will do and what he's done since 2014 builds on a succession of efforts. So India recognized Israel as a state in 1950. In 1953, allowed Israel to open a consulate in then Bombay, now Mumbai, and established formal diplomatic relations in 1992. All of this seems like the distant past. Without diminishing your relationship at all with the United States, Israel has long recognized this shift of power to the east and the need to develop closer relations to the rising powers of a multipolar world without in any way turning its back on its only genuine ally, the United States. Even before Prime Minister Modi's accession to leadership, relations were gradually improving. Ezer Weizman, for example, became the first Israeli president to visit Israel in 1997. In 2003, Prime Minister Sharon became the first Israeli prime minister to visit Israel. That, by the way, led to riots by some Muslims, but Indian Prime Minister Vajpayee refused to bend and applauded Sharon's visit as an important step forward to improve relations. And indeed, they have improved dramatically since. The breakthrough clearly occurred with the Prime Minister's election in 2014. Shortly thereafter, he and Prime Minister Netanyahu met at the margins of the UN General Assembly, exchanged very warm greetings, and little known, Modi sent greetings in Hebrew to the Prime Minister on Hanukkah, and the reply came in Hindi. Visits of Israeli Defense Minister Shalom to India in 2015, the visit to India of your Foreign Minister in 2016, including the tour of Yad Vashem, was capped by the first Indian president to visit Israel in 2015, who was invited to give a special speech to a session of the Knesset. These high-level visits are symbolic of the stunning and barely recognized deepening of bilateral ties across the board. Not coincidentally, coming at the very same time as ties with the United States have deepened as well. India no longer reflexively supports every anti-Israel resolution at the UN and has begun denouncing Palestinian terrorist acts. Following the tragic 2008 attacks in Mumbai, Israel offered to send special operations forces to assist in the investigation, and Maggid David Adom dispatched a team of medics to assist with rescue efforts. From almost zero in 1992, bilateral trade is now $5 billion, and it's estimated that if the free trade agreement can be concluded between the countries, it will be doubled to $10 billion. Yet even now, India is Israel's 7th largest export location. The dramatically improved relationship is also an example, and I think Ambassador Sofer was hinting at this, of how Israeli technological skills in the field of agriculture can have geopolitical impacts. Indeed, one of the things that attracted your Prime Minister during his long tenure as Chief Minister of Gujarat State was Israel's agricultural centers of excellence. That captured his attention because one of those centers of excellence, Mark, was in that state. And he saw very personally the impact that Israeli drip technology, soil solarization had impacts on Indian farmers increasing their yields, all done with no charge at all. This was something that clearly impacted his thinking. And it, again, demonstrates both the power of the states, but also the influence of agriculture. Of course, the defense sector is crucial, and India is the world's largest purchaser of Israeli military arms. Let me say that again. India is the largest purchaser of Israeli military arms, and for India, Israel is its 3rd largest arms supplier. Remarkable, truly remarkable. Israel's defense exports to India are around $1 billion annually. And importantly, this defense relationship is not hampered by the kind of tension that exists in the Israeli-Chinese defense relationship. In 1999, Israel supplied weapons to help India in its conflict with Pakistan, and the IDF sent an emergency response delegation to India following, as I mentioned, the devastating earthquake. We have jointly tested air and naval defense missile systems, and Israeli drones today are helping secure India's borders, operated by your excellent Indian Air Force. The two countries have boosted their counterterrorism coordination, and just this year, several major plots were uncovered and stopped. Given the high-tech prowess of both countries, this is a natural area for deepening relations, and indeed it is occurring. In 2005, a joint fund was established to encourage R&D projects between the two countries, and many have now gone forward. In 2012, the two countries signed a 5-year, $50 million academic research agreement to promote collaborative research in areas from medical to information technology, and as the ambassador indicated, in space technology as well. Now, we should be frank. There are thorny areas. For example, the budding relationship between India and Iran, which has both economic and strategic dimensions. But, as Wald and Kapoor note, the weakest link is the one that should be the strongest, and that is the cultural and information link. Both publics know precious little about each other. The BBC, in a recent poll, showed that only 9% of Israelis have a mainly positive view of India's influence. 34% view it as mainly negative, and 57% neither neutral or gave no response. Now, I am sure that the Prime Minister's visit will dramatically turn those figures around because it will elevate the relationship that people don't realize and that is really so vibrant. On the other side, this BBC poll showed that only 22% of Indians had a mainly positive view of Israel, 34% a negative view. With more interaction between the high-tech sectors, more joint research projects, more interaction between people, I'm confident these numbers will turn around. There are already 40,000 Indian tourists each year in Israel. By strengthening academic links, student exchanges, and cultural exhibitions, we will deepen the relationship. Indeed, again, it's probably almost unknown in Israel. 1 out of every 10 foreign students studying today in Israel is from India. 1 out of every 10. And that number will surely grow as well. Wald and Kapoor wisely recommend inviting large numbers of Indians' business elite to visit Israel and to increase university teaching in Israel about India and in India about Judaism. Just by coincidence, as I was walking in, Professor Jandig gave me this. This is a Jewish Center for Israel Studies at Jindal Global University. And this is the kind of exchange that we need. Absolutely terrific. And this is going to occur because as President Rivlin's visit to India, they signed a major student exchange and academic exchange agreement which will increase university teaching in Israel about India. Critically, this is a historic window of opportunity and Israel needs to seize it, and I'm sure they will with this visit. I want to conclude with putting this in the context of U.S.-India relations. Because just as relations have dramatically improved between India and Israel since Prime Minister Modi's election, so too they have with the U.S. And I'm certain, or as certain as one can be with this administration, that they will continue to improve as a global strategic partnership based on common values and common strategic interests. As with Israel, both countries share concerns about combating terrorism, a mistrust of China, and democratic values. Moreover, there are 3.5 million Indian Americans in the United States. And I saw a study, as I was preparing this talk, that showed, Mr. Ambassador, that Indian American households have the single highest per capita income of any cohort in the United States. The single highest, averaging over $100,000 per household. And this is an indication of the drive, the energy, the innovation, the education that your diaspora in the United States brings. And I know personally, because I have many, I won't say some of my best friends are Indian, because we used to say that about Jews, but some of my best friends are Indians. And the fact is that they bring with them a desire to see closer relations between the U.S. and India. They are very loyal to India. And so this is a diaspora that it's a jewel of an asset for India and the United States. In a recent poll, India is seen by Americans as the 6th favorite country in the world. 70% of Americans view India favorably. And I want to see that same number in Israel viewing India favorably and vice versa. And I think the visit can do that. Because the U.S. is a global power, the nature of our relationship with India will be broader, perhaps, than Israel's as a regional power. But I believe that because of the unique, close U.S.-Israel relationship, this can further enhance the India-Israel relationship. To his credit, President Obama placed great emphasis on improving relations with India, calling it a defining partnership of the 21st century. And in Prime Minister Modi, he found exactly the right partner. They issued a joint strategic vision of the Asia-Pacific and Indian Ocean, and India was called a major defense partner, a unique status specifically endorsed by the U.S. Congress. A hotline has been established between the Prime Minister's office and the White House. Maybe you don't need one now. You can just Twitter each other. And Modi was given the honor of addressing a joint session of Congress in 2016. There are more than 50 bilateral dialogues between our two governments. The defense relationship is also a major pillar of our strategic relationship. And the two countries conduct, and I want to repeat this very clearly, we conduct more bilateral military exercises with each other than with any other country. More bilateral military exercises than with any other country. We've worked together for years on a whole range of items. I want to speak personally because I've seen this through my own eyes in terms of the dramatic change. I was preparing as Undersecretary of State for President Clinton's visit, and it had to be scrapped because of India's nuclear test under the Glenn Amendment. Look at how far we've come now that in 2006, Congress allowed direct nuclear commerce for the first time in 30 years. A second personal item. I'll be very frank to say that as the chief negotiator of the Kyoto Protocols, when I was also Undersecretary of State, that at that time, India and China were very difficult to negotiate with. Look what's happened now. It's India that's in the Paris Agreement and the United States that's out of it. That says something about how far your country has come and something you can be proud of. I think we can enhance that relationship even more by concluding a bilateral investment treaty. Now, yes, there are areas of disagreement. Pakistan on one side, Iran on the other. I hope the America First and India Made in India program won't, in effect, clash. But I really believe that when you look at that and the potential limitation on H-1B visas, which could hurt India, that will be a pimple in an otherwise beautiful relationship. And the reason I believe that is for the same reason I believe the India-Israel relationship will blossom. And that is it's based on strategic interests, it's based on economic interests, it's based on a common view of the world, but it's also based on common democratic values. And at a time in the world when democracy is under threat, India is a perfect example, as is Israel, that democracies can produce for their countries. And so we look to you as an inspiration. And that's why I believe that this visit next week will truly be historic and will be to the great benefit of not only Israel, not only the United States, but all the people in the world who believe that democracy and free markets are the wave of the future, not autocracies. Thank you.